Check. Sibilance. Yeah, we're going to. Hey folks. Hi. Happy Wednesday. Hump Day. I'm going to ask you, since we're kind of an intimate group, that if you feel so inclined to kind of come forward so that we don't have to project our voice as much, we can kind of be a group together. We can see one another's faces a little bit more clearly. Also, you'll be able to see and read the content a little bit more clearly, and we can have kind of a better dialogue. So if you, please don't be shy. Not only do we not bite, but we're actually nice guys. So please feel free to come on forward, get to know your neighbor a little bit. What? Yes. We're going to light a little patchouli in here as well.
It kind of depends on how much we lost at the craps table last night, but thankfully not much.
So while everybody's moving up and we're getting settled, we wanted to put some questions just so we can get to know one another a little bit. So if, I'm not going to tell you to take out your phone too much because we want you to engage with us, but maybe you could take out your phone right now and go to this URL right here, polev.com/S607. That's the name and number of our section right now. Just go to your browser on your phone, go to polev.com, and it's going to be listed up here right there. polev.com/S607. And tell us a little bit about what your favorite part of today's keynote was. Was it the data-driven animations in After Effects? Was it the motion graphics templates in Adobe stock? Was it, the song? Was it Adobe XD, Dimension 1.0? Was it Adobe Spark and the custom branding features? Or is it too hard to choose one, right? So let us know what you think your favorite thing that you saw. If you have one that's not listed, then too many can't choose is fine. That's fine. This is just a representative sample. So it's looking good. It's looking like too many can't choose. That bodes well for us, I would say. Although XD is looking, oh no, XD is not winning. Nope. All right. Well, XD is still cool though. Too many can't choose. Well, as Adobe people, we love that answer. Now, your phone will have now shifted to the next question. Why did you love those things, those features, those apps so much? Is it going to save you time? Is it going to give you more creativity? Is it going to make your work easier, reduce how many steps, or all of the above, right? And depending on what you do, your answer might be different, or which thing you loved, your answer might be a little bit different. But most everybody is agreeing that all of the above, right? 62% say all of the above, right? Time, creativity, efficiency, reducing steps. So that's pretty predictable. Now, the question, this is the important question for today, is how quickly are you going to be able to go home and actually download, install in your organization? Not your personal side business where you're making posters, but at work. Go back to work right now. Are you able to roll this out in your organization? 42% of us say, 50% of us, wow, it's growing, Todd. I'm getting scared here. 53% say not quickly. That's very telling that that over half of us are not able to take the goodness that we experience in the keynote and deploy it quickly in the enterprise. So I'd like to introduce myself and my venerated colleagues over here. My name is Jerry Silverman. I am a senior product marketing manager for the Creative Cloud enterprise business at Adobe. And I am joined by my wonderful colleagues, my colleague Todd Burke, and by Andreas Pfeiffer. Guys, do you want to say hello, introduce yourselves a little bit?
Hello. Go ahead.
You do. Okay. Todd is a principal solutions consultant in Adobe's digital media organization, and Andreas is the president of Pfeiffer Consulting, which is a consulting organization that does productivity benchmarking for a lot of different technology tools. And we're all going to speak, but I'm going to take this first little patch here. and just take us through the agenda of what we want to try and get accomplished over the next little while, right? We're going to just set up some very basic definitions and talk about building the case, right? The title of this session is How to Persuade IT to Move to Creative Cloud. So we're going to define what Persuade is, what IT is, and what Move to Creative Cloud is, right? We're going to introduce that and then build the case to give you some tools as creatives on how to build the case for your IT. So that 50% next year when we have this session is down in the single digits, right? We're going to do another quick poll just about, how to move the conversation forward or how you generally tend to move the conversation forward with IT or not. And once we've built the case, once we've taken a moment to really figure out what the talking points are going to be inside of our organization, how do we defend it when we receive objections, right? When we go back and say, deploy it, and they say, no, and then we say, but this. That's what defending the case is, and that's what Todd is going to help us with. But one of the most important things we want to leave you with, when you walk out of here, you're going to have a bazillion resources in your bag, you're going to have pictures on your phone, social media feeds and everything, but to really get IT on your side, there are some specific resources that Adobe makes available to you as creatives, as designers, as users of the Adobe platform that are going to be really powerful. And we want to make sure that you know about them and that you have the ability to share them with the right people to get what you need. And then we'll take a little closing poll, do Q&A. But I should say that, if you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll do our best. We only have a short amount of time. But persuading, we're going to talk about persuading, we're going to talk about moving, and we're going to talk about IT, right? So when we talk about moving to Creative Cloud, we have to take a little history step back. Does anybody in the audience have a copy of Photoshop 1.0 in a box sitting in their garage somewhere? Okay, only 2 of us. But how many of us have a copy of some boxed software of Adobe's from the yonder days, right? So a lot, right? I have probably, 50 boxes just sitting miscellaneously, right? That was the old way of deploying to your desktop and laptop with the venerated serial number, and all you got was Photoshop or a desktop app or something like that. So persuading IT to move from this system of taking a serial number, putting it in a package, deploying it out to your entire enterprise means that we're moving to logins and named users, right? Like an enterprise ID or a federated ID that's integrated with your identity management system that then gives you access not only to the desktop software, but the mobile applications, all of the cloud services like Spark and Portfolio and Lightroom Mobile, Stock and Typekit and the Marketplace, integrations with Adobe Experience Manager and Slack and Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Office and license management tools for IT, right? There's a lot, and home use, right? Being able to use your stuff at home. There's a lot of powerful capabilities when you move from the serial number anonymous deployment to the networked logins and named users, right? And you have to remember just a little more history. When Adobe started the Creative Cloud in 2013, it was basically just a collection of point products, no services, no mobile apps. And over the last 5 years, this product set has gone from 16 to 50 plus products and services. It's grown more than 300%. And the robustness of the IT management tools, the deployment options, the security options, and the support has just exploded, right? As you saw just in the keynote, it's really quite a cornucopia. And you're missing out with serial numbers or without these mission-critical services that you guys all quite clearly were enamored by, myself included. I'm not only the president of Adobe, I'm also a client. So building the case goes like this, right? Like, why do we have to, does IT get it? Like, do they actually get it, right? Sometimes they do. They might, their hands might be tied. Sometimes they don't. It might not necessarily be their business to know, right? So putting out a carrot for them why we have to persuade them to move has to do with a few different things, right? As creatives in a organization, right, we're unique, right? Not everybody in the company knows about or understands or needs the Adobe Creative Cloud. And IT, quite frankly, already has a calendar of established programs and projects that they're working on. And if you've got like the one colorful penguin in the rest of the, kind of gray penguins, it's like, what, I have to stop my projects and my priorities, and I have to focus on this one little corner, right? So IT is not always thinking, they're thinking about the holistic whole, but might not be thinking about us, right? Another reason that they might not want to move is because cloud is new, right? This is like IBM 1962 mainframe, right? This whole notion of the on-premise data center, right? That model was dominant since the 60s, and this whole idea of cloud is really it's only gained prominence in like the late 1990s, early 2000s. And there's still a lot of anxiety around control, privacy, security, identity, data residency, right? That is still very unanswered or unstudied in IT. And so the knee-jerk reflex is, I don't know about it, I don't trust it, right? And the last one, of course, is, again, there are projects, right? When you have enterprise desktop app installation, update, release management, right? Like these are complex, and they're time-consuming for IT to trying to figure out and navigate. Just making sure that the right people are licensed for the right software is complex and time-consuming. And then, frankly, having enterprise licensing discussions with Adobe is also complex and time-consuming. So, time is money, and that's kind of the third reason why we kind of need to persuade them, right? And it's not, the onus is not all on the creatives, right? The onus is actually shared across several different departments in the enterprise, which we're going to talk about right now. But specifically in IT, it's kind of these four major groups that, in Adobe's experience in the field, like these are the groups that we talk to, right? Desktop support, the people who care what's on your desk, right? Mobile device services, the people who care what's on your phone. Sometimes those are the same people and sometimes not. Network and infrastructure operations, right? The people who care what's going across the wires, right, on your network. And security and information assurance, the people who care about the intellectual property that's behind your firewall and where it's going. Is it going anywhere, right? So those are the four typical titles/departments that we have to be engaged with, that we have to talk to in order to get purchase. It's not all up to us, but this is just kind of a vocabulary, of people. But there has to be a business justification for anything that you want to do. Time is money. They've got projects. Creatives are unique, and cloud is new. So we also have to get financial and business analysts as well as risk analysts on our side, right? It's not enough to just have the IT on board, right? Because IT can be on board, but without the business need clearly defined, IT is not going to necessarily be motivated. And then the last, right, I kind of think of a sandwich model where IT is like the meat, and then on the top are the executive creative directors, VPs of marketing, or VPs of design, VPs of the business, who are like the top half of the bun. And then we, the creative users and practitioners and designers, are like the bun on the bottom, right? And so if we generate groundswell and the VPs and the executive creative directors are creating groundswell, then that meets in the middle with IT. It's kind of a pincer type of move. And so we actually have to talk to them too, right? We have to convince them, right? We really have to sell it. And so if you're a designer, you work in the discipline of design, building a case is 3 steps. Talk about what is the benefit of making this change? How do I prove that this benefit is real? And what is the risk if we don't do anything, right? So that's how, these are the tools that we want to try and give to you guys. How to build the case, right? So the first benefit that I think we just saw just from the poll is in productivity, right? The time to market for your assets is reduced. You can increase the volume of content production and distribution, and your business unit has more responsiveness and adaptability to all the different changing market trends, right? AR, VR, 3D, 360, all of these different market trends, we can be very adaptable to it. And that's where all of these new tools, apps, services, et cetera, XD, Dimension, Spark, Character Animator, Lightroom, right? That's where they all come into play, is they have a direct impact on productivity. They also have an impact on efficiency, right? If you have a streamlined collaboration workflow with Creative Cloud libraries, or team projects or motion graphics templates in stock, I can't stop singing that song in my head, right? Data-driven animations or Git integration with Dreamweaver, then that's going to make things a lot more efficient. For IT, if they have a central administrative console where they can do licensing management and manage security, and they can provision those licenses with flexibility, accountability, speed, that's going to make them a lot more efficient, right? And you don't have to be an expert in our Adobe admin console to tell them that there is an admin console that is going to make their lives easier, right? If they have fewer infrastructure needs because they have the granular capability of provisioning software and services, it's going to make them more efficient, and it's going to get you the stuff that you need very quickly. And the last one, as we saw, was in creativity, right? You get to spend less time doing the same boring, 5-keyword claw, and then, like 12 steps to get one result. And you have this ever-expanding palette of resources at your disposal, and you're empowered to learn new skills and be more creative, right? That's what the immersive 360, the curvature pen tool, the puppet warp tool, the capturing those fonts, right, from Adobe Capture. Wasn't that cool? It's amazing. Like, you take time out and become more creative just by using these tools, and it's really amazing. So we talked about the benefits, right? The benefits are productivity, efficiency, creativity, right? The top three, right? So how do you prove it? So that is why we have invited the wonderful Andreas Pfeiffer, president of Pfeiffer Consulting, who is here from Paris. This is one of the many reasons that we brought Andreas here, because Andreas runs a research and consulting company that benchmarks all of the productivity and efficiency metrics around a lot of different companies, right? So he's been working with companies both in the media space and technology providers, creating original research and benchmarking focused on all the transformations of the media and technology landscape. And Adobe is very fortunate to have him doing productivity and efficiency benchmarks specifically on features that you can take back and talk not only to IT, but to any of those other titles, to the business and financial analysts and risk analysts, and to the executives and VPs who need to know what the business impact of this is. So please help me give a warm welcome to Andreas, who's going to take us through some of his studies.
Hello. Does this work? Yes, it does work. Hello.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks for this lovely introduction. I'm blushing. It sounds very grand. So I just want to give you a little bit, for me it's really exciting to be here and to be able to explain what we are doing, because we've been doing this for like forever, basically. Almost 20 years by now. And my background is in design and publishing, so I was editor-in-chief of a computer magazine for 10 years. And I feel very strongly about tools, and I feel very strongly about productivity and efficiency, and always trying to improve it. And that's basically how it all came to do this productivity research. And it all started here. This is the magazine I ran. It was the leading Mac publication in France for 10 years. And we did a lot of benchmarking like computer magazines I want to do. And what we found out is through market research is that the users didn't really believe the benchmarks. I mean, they believed the benchmarks, but they didn't believe that when we said the machine was 2 times faster, that it would make them in their work faster. And when I started my company, it was really, the thought was, how can we make benchmarks that resonate with users? That the user can say, okay, I can see these figures and I can relate to what they tell me. So basically what we're doing is we're combining research and benchmarking. Research is always very important. And since we are users ourselves and passionate users at that, we listen to what people say and we discover sometimes very interesting stuff. And this was one of the really strange things that happened. When we did the first research we published in 1998 was about Mac versus PC in publishing. That was the time when Apple was almost dead and people said Disney is going to buy them, they're not going to make Macs anymore. And we made a report which we sold to IT directors in publishing houses, which really tried to drill down on what the real differences are between the platforms. And to do that, we talked to users, we talked to IT managers. And what people said is, we don't really care about Mac or Windows. What we do find out is, remember that was Windows 98 and Windows Vista at the time. What they told us is that they feel they're less efficient when they're using Windows. And they thought, okay, we can quote that, but there must be a way of measuring that. And we came up with a notion that at the time, we coined that term, user interface friction, basically meaning that the user interface can slow you down. So we thought, can we measure that? And we found a methodology of measuring that. At the time, user interface friction had literally 0 hits on Google. If you Google it now, you'll see that it's quite frequently used in user interface research. And the benchmarks you can see here, so this is basically, oops, does that work? Yeah. So what we're measuring here is the menu latency. So basically how we did that was we executed the same menu command 10 times, 20 times, and see how long it would take. And you can really measure, I mean, you can go very granular in those benchmarks. And we could actually prove that Windows Vista was much less good than Windows XP, and that Mac OS X was faster than Windows XP. So that was the finding at the time. Now, how we measure productivity is actually quite simple. What we're really trying to do is to emulate an experienced user. And the way we do, not the power user who knows every keyboard shortcut, but the user who knows his way around the program, who doesn't hesitate to find where options are, but and sort of executes tasks. What we do then is we describe a result that the fastest way to achieve a given result. Okay, so basically, literally every step in a very granular way. And then we chop this up in small chunks of 4 or 5 steps. So we're not executing the whole suite because then you introduce hesitation in the process. It's always small steps. And we do these steps 3 times. So we average them out. If you do it more than 3 times, then you introduce something like muscle memory in the process. You're actually becoming faster than you would be in the real world. And so that process we have been using ever since the beginning, and it works very well. Now, what's really important about this is all the benchmarks are defined by experts in the field and executed by people who are used to using the tools. And most importantly, we never use scripting for that. So it's not just a script that runs and does as if. It's really users doing it. And that methodology we have fine-tuned it over the years, but it's always worked that way. And we have measured a great variety of things. This, for instance, was at a time when a big display was as expensive as a computer. And Apple came to us and says, we want to find a way to show that you're more productive when you have a big display, because if you want to spend $3,000 on a display, you better know that it's useful. And we did that by defining benchmarks both in the creative space, retouching, how long does it take you to check an image for, at the time that was before digital photography, so you had scans and you had to check for dust specks on a scan. How long would it take you to scroll through an image on a big screen, on a small screen? We had cut and paste operations in Excel and Word, things like that. And you can see here that basically this is how fast you are with a 17-inch display, with a 20-inch display, and this is with a 30-inch display. So the methodology worked very well for that. This was another project. This was actually great fun. I'm a great fan of InDesign. And one thing that was very interesting when InDesign started taking on, that users came from a different page layout program, which I'm not going to name here, which you all know, and they used it the way they used that program, which had much less features. So it was, basically it was like driving a Ferrari in second gear. And so we thought, well, there must be a way of measuring or quantifying to some extent the creative potential you have in InDesign. And to do that, we did that for several feature areas in InDesign. We did it for tables, we did it for transparency, for typography, and so forth. And we defined real design projects. We designed a CD cover, book cover, things like that really used the features you have in InDesign. But not only did we execute them, once we had defined them, we checked, we benchmarked how fast you could do it if you knew the program well. And this example, this was just the creation of the table. Everything in this page is made in InDesign. So there was absolutely nothing created in Illustrator, nothing created in Photoshop. This example, I don't know if you can read it, you can execute it in just over 2 minutes if you know InDesign well. So that was a great project. A completely different project was Japanese typography. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Japanese typography. It's very complex and very different from European typography. And to do that, we actually went to Japan for a few weeks and worked with a publishing consultant in Japan who helped us define, I had some notions about it, but he really helped us define the benchmarks themselves, and we then executed with them. So that was very interesting. That's another example. So when we do this research, sometimes the research deliverables are geared towards an IT user, an IT decision maker. They're formatted in a certain way and analyzed in a certain way. Others are geared towards the user. And this is a very important aspect for me in this story, is that we all know we can be more productive with a feature, but until you've seen how much time you gain, you sort of think, okay, well, it may be faster, but we are all lazy. I mean, I'm including myself in that, absolutely. We do not want to change how we work, even when we know that we might be faster. And so this was a big project we did around Creative Suite 6. And we did a whole report on imaging features. This is one of them, and you can see how much faster you are. This is the last example. This was the Muse team came to us, that's a few years, like 3 or 4 years ago, and said, we want to measure, benchmark the quality of the code output from Muse. And if you've ever heard about automated code output and talked to a developer, they will say, oh my God, this is the last thing, it's verbose code, you can't use it, it will not be SEO friendly, whatever. So what we did here was we hired a web developer who was very skeptical in the beginning. He says, I don't believe it, this can't really work, but he worked with us. So he spends his time coding. And we did several examples guided by him where we looked at so how SEO friendly is the code output from Muse. And in the end, it was very positive and much better than we feared in terms of quality of code. And actually, the developer himself said for some things he might use Muse because it's just faster than doing it manually. So the very important lesson here, and that's a really, really, really important one, is small productivity gains add up. And we all think if you have a feature that makes you save 5 seconds, you think, what's 5 seconds? But 5 seconds, if you use that feature 10 times a day, every day of the week, you'd be surprised how much time you save. And it makes you more efficient in finalizing a product, going home earlier, and all that. So this is some of the results. So these are average results from the CS6, same CS6 benchmarks, and you can see we have average for After Effects, Premiere Pro, Dreamweaver, and so forth. But the way these things add up is really important. So it's of course, you have to use the features. If you don't use the features, then it doesn't make you more efficient. But what I said before, this productivity is the ultimate killer feature. I think that's a very important point. I've done a lot of market research with creative professionals, and when you tell them, here is something, here's a new feature, is okay, good. If I need it, great. If I don't need it, it's okay. I'll remember there is a feature I might need one day, but I still have to learn it, I have to remember it and all that. If you tell somebody, here's a program that will make you 30% faster in the stuff you already do, then you have something that makes you is an immediate benefit for you, right? So with this, we get, these are now the recent benchmarks we conducted for Todd and Jerry and the enterprise team. The first one was about CC libraries. So I don't know how familiar you are with CC libraries. Basically, the idea is that you can save something directly to a library, and that library can be shared. And so as soon as you put something in a library, it becomes immediately available to anybody who has access to the library. So in this example here, what we benchmarked was applying a color setting to an object in InDesign or in Illustrator, and compared with taking a template document that you don't have, copying it to a server to share, and getting it back from the server and then extracting that. And you can see how much faster you are. It literally took 16 seconds to get it out of the library. And this is the same methodology, but for sharing assets, icons, color swatches, style sheets in a 5-person team. And you can see that it takes sharing the same things among 5 people that were Photoshop users, InDesign and Illustrator users there. Took 3 minutes, and I can't see it here, it's like 16 or 19 minutes for the whole thing. So these things really scale up and accumulate. And this is the average of all workflow benchmarks, and you can see how much faster libraries makes you. I think that's very important because one doesn't necessarily think about using libraries as a workflow tool. I don't know if you have data on that, if people start using that, because it really makes you much faster. We'll come back to that actually in motion templates as well. So this is the second project, which is just finalized. I think is it available now, the report? Yeah, so it's motion graphics templates, basically, is what you saw in the demo today. It's a way of grouping special parameters of a composition, in making them available in a way that you don't have to go through the whole composition to access them. What we tested here was the collaboration between an After Effects user and a Premiere Pro user. So if you have ever looked at After Effects, these files are very, very complex, and they have all these nested layers, and it's very hard to find your way around, even if you know it, even if you've done it yourself. So what we compared here was making some parameters available in the MoGAT file, motion graphics template file, that we put into Premiere Pro. And compared to using, accessing the same things in After Effects. And there's two aspects here. First of all, when we do these things, the legacy workflows, we try to be as optimistic as possible. If After Effects file is badly constructed, you can spend hours hunting for the right parameter. These were all files that were created by a motion graphics artist who is working on feature films. So we created an opening credit for a film where you could change the name of the director, the name of actors, you could change graphic elements, background color, things like that. And so this is very definitely much faster by importing the file into Premiere Pro. There's another aspect which we didn't benchmark, but which is very important, especially in video production, is that very often the Premiere Pro editor will not do the changes himself. So we will send a file back to the After Effects person and say, I need you to change this, this, and that. So it means he has to spend time explaining what he wants. Then the person has to open the file, stop doing what he or she was doing before, and then make the changes. So that would even be a much bigger loss of time. So this is the ideal case. The file, the way it was constructed was very well structured. We knew exactly where we had to go, but still just opening the nested layers in After Effects and going to the thing you need to change, it just takes a lot of time. And so these are the average. Again, you can see that the motion graphics templates is at least over three times faster than working without it. So with this, I just want to thank Adobe for always coming up with nice features to make us more productive and encourage you all to use them because it makes a difference. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Andreas. So yeah, no, I don't want 10 times the productivity. I don't want to be 87% more productive, right? Like, this is not something you say to IT. You say, we could be 87% more productive with Creative Cloud libraries. We could be 4 to 5 times more productive and efficient with Adobe motion graphics templates in our After Effects to Premiere editorial motion graphics workflow, right? And the risk of not adopting a forward position on productivity and efficiency, for many enterprises, you're losing time to market. Your competitors are providing an AR, VR, 360 experience, and you're not, because you're not adopting those cutting-edge workflows. That means you lose market share, and you lose customers to those competitors, and you lose talent. Your employees are walking out the door to a place that is much more forward-facing towards these technologies and wants to realize productivity and efficiency benefits. So IDC, right, International Data Corporation, they did a study a couple years ago about the value of digital asset management, where they interviewed marketing and creative people, like 11,000 of them across different professions and geographies. And they found that 85% of them responded that they are now under pressure to create assets, deliver more campaigns more quickly, right? So this is an acknowledged state of affairs in business and in marketing and design, and that they're creating over 10 times the amount of assets today to support all of these different increasing channels, right? We need something for all of the mobile devices. We need for the watch. We need for the, the Theta, right? This, 360 camera. We need something for signage. We need something for billboards. We need, right? It's just exploded. And personalizing assets, going into your email and finding something addressed to you that is designed for you, that is personalized to where you are in the buying cycle or selling cycle, right? 76% of respondents said, yeah, this is radically increasing my need to have content velocity, which means productivity and efficiency, right? So those are the risks. You are losing time to market, losing market share and customers, losing talent, employees. You're basically going to become a dinosaur. And Todd's going to talk about that just momentarily. But before we get there, we want to ask your opinion on something else, how you guys interact with IT. So go ahead back onto your phones to pollev.com/S607, or just refresh your browser on your phone and answer a couple of these questions. Like what objections, if you were to go to your IT, what are the objections you might get from them, right? Sorry, can't use cloud. Or we need information assurance and security approval before we can implement. Or sorry, we can't have users installing apps themselves. Or we already have a cloud. We have Dropbox, we have Box, we have SharePoint. Can you use those instead of Creative Cloud, please? So it looks like we're getting, right, information assurance, security, right? We already have some other cloud service, which is very telling. But how very interesting, Todd, that the biggest one so far is approval from information assurance and security before we can implement. That's the biggie at 46%. Winner, winner. All right. So how do you, when you receive that objection from IT, what is your response, right? Do you escalate to a higher tier? Do you figure out how to get what you need another way somehow? Or do you just throw up your hands and say, fine, you win IT, I'll just settle with CS3, and I will live in an era before content-aware fill, right? So good, we have some industrious creatives who figure out how to get what they need another way, but I feel your pain on settling with what you have. I definitely feel your pain, but almost 50% figure out how to get it another way, which is probably not sanctioned by IT, right? We all want to be swimming together in the same pool here. So then, if you're one of those 50%, like what workaround do you actually use? Do you like bring in your own laptop, like use your own software, you work off network, work from home, or are there just no workarounds and it's sad? So a lot of people, very interestingly, right, using your own personal software and hardware. Wow, that's the big one.
It's big.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, and that's probably not what your business wants because they pay a lot of money for the software and hardware that you're not using. And they're not buying you your own personal hardware and software, so you're like chewing through your own budget to do work. So it's a losing proposition for IT and for you, unfortunately. And so what we have now is how to defend the case. And for that, I give you Principal Solutions Consultant Todd Burke with Adobe. Give him a round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
Don't you dare spill that on.
No, thank you.
Can
you hear me? Am I mic'd up?
Yeah,
Good.
Good.
Oh.
You. Take that.
I've not been trained on how to use the clicker. So thank you all for sticking around. I'm pretty sure all of our phones just went off indicating that there is alcohol in some other part of the building. So for those of you that are sticking around, we really appreciate it. I just want to spend a couple of minutes on what it's like to defend the case. There are a few other things I just wanted to also mention. Later in the presentation, we're going to give you the URL to this presentation. It's quite flattering to see many of you taking pictures, and we certainly appreciate it, but we're going to make it easy on you and give you the URL to the whole deck in its high-resolution format for you to enjoy in all of its glory later on. There are some really good nuggets here, so we're going to pass that on to you. And obviously, there are a number of you that are both IT, there are IT folks and creative folks, and this is really, I think, more about how do you work together. But this particular segment is about really the sound bites and the thoughts and the defense that you might have relative to what the Creative Cloud brings to your organization and your work. So one of the things to think about, and this slide's a little bit foreboding because here we have these dinosaurs, but one of the things that we, in this study from the John M. Olin School of Business at Washington University, estimates that 40% of Fortune 500 companies in the S&P are not going to exist in 10 years. So it's slightly terrifying. Didn't necessarily mean to do that, but that also means opportunity as well. Now, also related to that, we also know that the Design Value Index indicates that design-driven companies have outperformed the S&P by 219% over the last 10 years. So you don't want to become a dinosaur, but you have a huge opportunity embracing all the things that come along with being a forward-thinking design culture. So the Edelman Intelligence Report, which is a bit recent, this is October of 2016, indicates that 78% of professionals across diverse ages and geographies that invest in creativity are more likely to increase employee productivity. And again, for those of you that are creatives working with your partners in IT, this is a point that you make with the IT folks as it relates to the case that you're making with them. I don't know if I would actually take the dinosaur case to Adobe IT. I probably wouldn't, but nevertheless. But this is really, really important, useful information. Again, the link to that will be coming here shortly. 80% of businesses in this report that invest in creativity are more likely to have satisfied customers. That means their investment in creativity affects the top line, which is really substantial. So the other really important thing to note is the demand for streamlined processes is increasing. This also ties back to something that Andreas mentioned earlier. Productivity is the killer app. It's really the killer feature. So, and in this particular case, we note that creatives are spending more time than 3 to 5 years ago creating content, more time on online collaboration, asset sharing, and management. By the way, we can cut out some of that time with Creative Cloud libraries. A bit of a shameless plug for one of my favorite cloud features. Also, iterating over designs and getting approvals. It's a massive amount of time spent there. And then meetings and administration. And apparently, 4% of these people 3 to 5 years ago have not changed whatsoever. That's none of you, I'm assuming. All right, there's a couple of other things. So in this particular case, the businesses started by designers and have created billions of dollars of value, raising billions of dollars in capital, and are really a bellwether of what's to come, increasingly recognize how design impacts the bottom line. So we're also seeing where design and embracing design culture has a significant impact on new businesses, new opportunities within existing businesses, really substantial. Another report out by IDC with respect to defending the case is a 129% increase in the number of global organizations embracing cloud services from 2015 to 2016. As we were discussing this presentation, I had contended there's probably not a company that doesn't have at least one cloud service available to their creatives and their team members. Hard to imagine. There are a few, but for the most part, creatives are using at least one cloud service somewhere. So now, this IDC survey, the same one, you can't really read the link, but it again, we'll have that for you in just a second. Respondents ranked the top benefits of adopting cloud technology as follows. It improves IT staff productivity. So IT staff productivity, meaning those of you that are in IT, I know a few of you are here, you spend less time packaging software, checking the package deployments. I was chatting with one of the IT persons that we have here yesterday who said he wastes a lot of time checking on the machines for which the package should have been pushed but didn't because it was turned off. It was about 20% of the machines in his organization. I see some of you nodding, some more vigorously than others, but that's a big waste of your time if you're in IT. If you're a creative, mentioning this to your IT team, that's usually a pretty good thing because you're giving them lots of their time back. It's also improving resource utilization on the IT side. There are a number of things that IT folks have to manage within this environment that come as a benefit of eliminating some of the older approaches to software deployment. And then reducing the size of the IT budget. Has anybody had a double-digit increase in IT budget in the last year or so? I mean, I heard a chuckle. That chuckle, I think, was verification that probably not. And also, as well, improve internal IT service delivery. I'm assuming that many of you that are here that are a part of IT have had your internal creative customers come to you and ask for an update that you weren't prepared to give them. And what does that do to their satisfaction of your delivery of service? Probably not as high. And one of the nice things about the way we're delivering the Creative Cloud is that we're able to allow users to choose their own installs and deployment. Now again, for those of you that are in IT, There's work to be done to verify how that works within your organization. For those of you who are creatives, when you ask IT, they may obviously be in the process of verifying how all that works. But nevertheless, when provided user self-service, there's a delight associated with that. There's also usually a drop in support trouble tickets to your internal IT help desk as well. And improve time to market. Time to market really applies both on the amount of time it takes to make content for your company to reach its customers, but also the amount of time it takes for your IT team to respond to what we're providing your creatives to reach your consumers and your customers. We released 2 new apps today, Adobe Dimension, Adobe XD. Both have been in beta for some time, but they're now available today. And they relate to a number of new initiatives that are on the horizon. I was taking pictures with my new Ricoh Theta 5. I think 360 pictures are interesting. Haven't quite exactly figured out how I'm going to deal with them, but the engagement scores on 360, for example, this is one quick example, are significantly higher than other engagement scores in social media. No idea why it is. I think maybe it's just maybe it's novelty. They're cool. I don't know. But this is a new medium. Imagine now taking an object in Dimension and dropping it into a 3D world, for example. That's part of what Adobe is doing, is looking into the future and trying to figure that out. Time to market is really important in this case. And then in this, we're also talking about expanding into new market segments, which relates to what I just mentioned, also with XD reaching into the screen design world and optimizing that as much as possible. Those apps are brand new as of today. And ideally, for those of you who are creative, I'm assuming you probably want to go back and have them today. And those of you who are in IT probably, I'm assuming, are going to get requests from your creatives to get them today. And hopefully, that's something that we can help out with in the not too distant future. All right, so let's talk a little bit about resources that you have available to you for either creatives or IT that you can have access to. This one, right, please. This is your...
No.
Yeah.
My precious.
A little nerding out on that. But nevertheless, this is the one IT source to rule them all. So, darn, you can't read it. You can't read the URL. Again, the other URL coming up is much larger, and it'll have all of this in it, including that URL. But we have... in this URL, we just recently launched this, which are resources related to all of the things that we just talked about. So the next slide will be easier for photography. You're welcome to take as much as you want. Yeah, you're up close, so you'll get it. So this lists a number of deployment guides. We have a deployment guide that we wrote on how to deploy Creative Cloud libraries in depth. I think it's a 28-page guide specifically on CC libraries, both for IT and creative. The FIFO reports that talk about analytical evidence of productivity increase, they are listed here, including the new one we just released in the last few days for motion graphics templates, Creative Cloud libraries, Adobe Stock. So we actually have a productivity report on how Adobe Stock increases productivity by virtue of its integration to the applications. They're all in one place. So these are a few of them that are there. IT Best Practices and Deployment Guide. This is a fantastic guide. One of the nice things that this document has in it is it has a project timeline to deploy named user within the Adobe environment. So if you don't have named user, this has, I think it's 4 weeks. Is it a 4-week time? Pardon? Sorry, thank you. Thank you. The author of the documents is reminding me that this is a different document. Best practices on the administration console for IT. This walks through how to configure different parts, how to do users, groups, and entitlements. And the implement, this is it, right? Thank you. It has a much more detailed project timeline. As a suggestion, obviously, you follow whatever timeline you need, but very detailed with respect to information that you need. This is the implement CC libraries. In this particular case, we walk through a number of things about what goes in a library, types of assets to use in a library, how to share a library, who gets view and who gets edit, restrictions on a library, a number of different really important aspects of Creative Cloud libraries. So the Adobe Enterprise Customer Resource Guide as well, a bunch of information in that. Design-led firms win with business advantage, Forrester report. State of Create survey, referenced a moment ago, the Edelman survey. So for those of you that are presenting your case to IT, evidence, defending your case. These are the productivity reports that I mentioned. Now, again, Andreas, I think, was a bit humble in mentioning what these reports really do for those of us in the creative space attempting to make a case with our IT folks. 10x, it's the Adobe Creative Cloud libraries, the productivity impact of shared assets and settings. So when we were first writing this report, we worked through the steps. Andreas verified the steps used by external third parties that use Adobe software but aren't employed with or deal directly with Adobe. And they walked through the steps. The first time they ran this report, the numbers were almost not quite believable. But that's what ended up happening. A Creative Cloud library, for those of you that haven't seen it, it's like putting your brand guidelines or your style guide right in Photoshop and making it clickable. All right there. Colors, character styles, vector graphics, bitmap graphics. We found a 10x performance increase by putting that style guide in Photoshop rather than leaving it at a PDF somewhere in a shared drive. Productivity is the killer feature. So info brief on cloud-based software management. So that IDC slide that I had a moment ago with the blue boxes, that's contained here. And then Creative Cloud Enterprise Security Overview. This one's extremely exciting for your security teams. And you as well if you're into security. What's great about this is it walks through a significant amount of detail on variety of aspects of Adobe's security posture. So this is very in-depth. I think one of the answers to one of the questions was security, I believe. This is something that you would give to your IT and information security teams, chock full of all kinds of stuff that they find really useful in evaluating how we approach security. It's way too much information in here to cover, but massive amount of security information and extremely detailed. One creative resource to rule them all.
My precious.
I don't think anybody heard that.
My precious.
Thanks. We got it the second time, right? Okay. Enterprise Creative Learning Hub. Now, this is a bit more about the creatives using the Creative Cloud capabilities. So this is also another thing we've just recently launched as well. More best practices guides for creatives. Again, we're giving you a significant amount of resources here. Apologies on the legibility. Now we have, thank you for participating in the previous polls, extremely helpful. One final poll. I get to do this one, right? Yeah. All right, this is exciting. Here you go. Do these resources help you feel more empowered to speak? Wow, 100%. Okay, we're done. No, but the interactive polling was fun. A little. I think the 6 and 6 are people who are here that are in IT. Sorry, thank you. That's fantastic. Hopefully, we accomplished what we were trying to do. I love this polling thing. This is really quite fantastic. One more. Which was most surprising? Number of Fortune 500 companies facing extinction, gulf between creative potential and creative reality for workers, benchmarking results for Creative Cloud apps and services, and amount of resources, white papers, and studies at my disposal. Excellent. We weren't really sure what the results were going to be. This is really quite helpful, and thank you for participating. One more. Forgot about this one?
Yes. Ring-tailed lemur, go.
Ring-tailed lemur.
Woohoo. Oh, man.
I don't even know what that is. Not sure. Other. That's really interesting. I had asked for other in another customer presentation, and I asked somebody if they had an exotic pet to use in my demonstration, and he had a dragon. and I didn't know that that existed as a pet. I was slightly embarrassed to know, what was it called? There's a type of dragon you can have as a pet. I don't think you can have that as a pet. Bearded dragon. Thank you. Bearded dragon. We should have had bearded dragon, but nevertheless, that's great. Now, we do need to remind you. We're going to have Q&A in just a second, but we are obligated to remind you to take advantage of the survey. It helps us determine what's important to you. And in this case, you will enter for a chance to win one of these ebooks from Adobe Press. Every survey with your name, you have a chance to win a Wacom tablet if you don't already have one. So make sure you do the survey. Another one is join us in the Adobe Creative Insider Lounge in room 2406. Go to the lounge to win potentially a Mavic Pro drone, iPad Pro, or the palette kit. I really want to get my hands on the palette kit.
If you guys have seen the Adobe socks, have you seen the socks that have all of the, so over there in room 2406, like while supplies last, they're giving out some of those cool socks, like for free. So, what's that? Yeah.
Somebody's wearing them?
Who's wearing the socks? Oh, nice.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
go over to that gentleman on the aisle and check out his socks. They're pretty great, and you can get a complimentary pair by going there.
Thank you for wearing the socks today to our session. All right. So the point that I mentioned earlier for all of you, if you need these slides, we wanted to make sure to provide them. This is slightly more legible and a bit shortened. So thank you. All right. So why don't we just leave that on the screen, maybe?
Sorry.
Yeah, we'll leave it. We'll just leave that, but we wanted to make ourselves available for Q&A for any of you who had questions. Hopefully this was insightful.
Yeah, we got it.
Yes.
It would have been easier to move to Creative Cloud apps if you guys didn't offer a packaged option.
It would have been easier to move to Creative Cloud apps if you...
If you guys didn't offer the option to package and have them distributed to desktops.
Right.
Because that's defeated the whole purpose.
It's a little... Unfortunately, the amount of... What's that?
But before we get to that, we want to say thanks to the folks who had to leave. Can we get a round of applause for Andreas and for Todd for doing such a wonderful job? And thank you guys. Thank you guys for collaborating here.
Thank you, Jerry. This was a very good information, so thanks for helping.
Sure.
Head this.
And so to answer Gretchen's question, if you want to take a stab.
So I got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to answer it. The question was, it would have been easier to deploy Creative Cloud via the cloud if there weren't a packaging option. I don't know that we could do that because we need a period to transition between installing things via the cloud and installing things via the way they've been done for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Without that transitionary period, there would just be a lot of pain and suffering on behalf of everybody. So the packaging is there for a number of use cases, where perhaps a company might want to deploy the package but still activate using named user deployment, which is perfectly fine. So anyway. No, we don't have that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of enterprises where managing the desktops very carefully is just never going to be a policy that changes. So is there an end in sight for serial numbers? And the answer to that is, for the vast majority of Adobe's customers, yes.
Yeah. Serial numbers have ended, but yeah.
Yeah, they're a very certain small percentage of like the defense and intelligence community who, we might work something out, but that's...
Other questions? Was there a... Hi, yeah. Well, thank you for staying.